The small town was quiet at night. Most people were home by sunset, their lights off by 10. The streets emptied early, and even the dogs didn't bark after dark. Sheriff Mike Jensen liked it that way. He had worked in bigger cities before, where sirens screamed all night and trouble never slept. But here, in this peaceful town, things were different. He patrolled at night not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He liked driving around, making sure everything was safe. Nothing much ever happened. But one night, something unusual caught his eye. It started with a flash of color through the window of the local laundromat. The place stayed open 24 hours, mostly for truckers passing through or the occasional night owl doing laundry. Mike had passed it 100 times and never thought much about it. But this time he saw a little girl sitting inside, all by herself. She had a purple backpack and worn-out shoes. Her legs swung from the bench where she sat, not touching the ground. She didn't seem scared, just quiet, watching the dryers spin. He slowed his car, parked across the street, and watched. She didn't do laundry. She didn't talk to anyone. She just sat there, eyes on the machines, for almost 2 hours. Finally, just after midnight, she got up and left. She disappeared into the shadows behind the building, and that was it. Mike thought maybe she was waiting for someone. Maybe her mom worked a late shift and told her to stay inside where it was safe. It wasn't a crime, but something about it stayed with him. The next night he saw her again. Same time, same spot, same clothes. She sat quietly, never touched the washers or dryers, never carried laundry. She didn't seem nervous, but she didn't seem happy either. Just still, watching. Mike asked himself if he should go talk to her. He didn't want to scare her. She was just a kid. Maybe 10 years old, 11 at most. He decided to wait. Maybe this was just a one-time thing. But the third night came, and she was there again. Alone. By the fourth night, Mike couldn't ignore it anymore. Something wasn't right. Kids didn't sit in laundromats by themselves every night unless something was wrong. He pulled into the lot and walked inside. The door gave a soft ding when it opened, but the girl didn't even look up. She kept her eyes on the dryer like it was showing her a movie. "Hey there," Mike said gently. "Everything okay?" She looked up slowly. Her eyes were big and calm but tired. She nodded once. "You waiting for someone?" he asked. She nodded again. "Mama," she said softly. Mike crouched beside her. "What's your name?" "Tanisha." "That's a pretty name. I'm Mike. I'm the sheriff around here." She didn't seem surprised. She just nodded politely, like she knew he wouldn't hurt her. "Where's your mom now?" he asked. "She's working. She told me to wait here." "What kind of work does she do?" Tanisha looked at her shoes and shrugged. "She just works. Late sometimes." "Do you have a phone? Or does she?" She shook her head. Mike didn't want to push too hard. He could see she was scared to say too much. Maybe she had been told not to talk to strangers, even kind ones. So he stood up and said, "Okay, I'll let you be. Just checking in, all right?" Tanisha nodded. He walked back to his car, but he didn't drive away. He stayed parked across the street, lights off, watching. Just after midnight, she got up again, walked to the back of the building, and vanished into the dark. He thought of following her, but stopped himself. He needed to know more before stepping in. The next morning, he asked around. He went to the corner store next to the laundromat, the diner, even the gas station. Nobody had seen her with an adult. Nobody knew where she lived. It was like she just appeared at night and disappeared before morning. He called child services and gave a description. They checked their system. No reports matched. No missing persons. No one looking for a girl named Tanisha. That night, she was back again. This time, Mike brought a paper bag with 2 sandwiches and a bottle of apple juice. He walked in and offered her one. "Thanks," she said quietly. You eat dinner yet? She shook her head. Sometimes Mama brings food when she gets off. Well, now you don't have to wait, he said. They sat in silence while she ate. She didn't eat fast, but she was clearly hungry. When she was done, he asked gently, "Do you go to school around here?" She hesitated. "Not right now. We're moving soon." "Where do you live?" She looked away. "Different places. Like, with friends? Or family?" Tanisha said nothing. Mike felt a lump in his throat. He had seen this kind of thing before. Kids who got lost in the cracks. Families that slipped through the system. Parents who loved their children but couldn't always protect them. He didn't think Tanisha was in danger from her mom. He didn't think she was being abused. But something was wrong. No child should be sleeping in shadows, waiting in laundromats all night. He decided to wait until she left. Maybe this time he would follow, just far enough to see where she went. At 12:15, she stood up, zipped her backpack, and walked out. Mike gave her a minute, then followed. She didn't walk far. She slipped into the alley behind the laundromat, walked past a dumpster, and disappeared behind a row of parked cars. Mike got out of his cruiser and moved quietly. That's when he saw it. An old beat-up car, parked in the shadows, its windows fogged from the inside. The back seat was filled. With bags, old clothes, and a thin blanket. Tanisha climbed into the passenger side, pulled the blanket over herself, and laid down across the seats. She was living in the car. Mike didn't move. He just stood there, frozen. His heart ached. No kid should be sleeping in a car by herself. But what could he do? If he woke her up now, would she run? Would she be scared? Would he scare her more than help her? He walked back to his vehicle, sat down, and stared at the steering wheel. He thought about his own daughter, who was grown now and living in Chicago. She had a warm bed, clean sheets, and a roof over her head. She had a father who loved her and always made sure she was safe. Tanisha didn't even have a pillow. Mike didn't sleep that night. He went home and sat in his kitchen with a cup of coffee until the sun rose. He knew he couldn't just leave things the way they were. This girl needed help. Real help. Not just sandwiches and kind words, but he also knew he had to be careful. If he moved too fast, he could break her trust. If he involved the wrong people too soon, she could be taken away from her mother forever. And something in her eyes told him she loved her mama, no matter what. He needed answers. And he needed them fast. Sheriff Mike woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling in his chest. The image of Tanisha, that little girl sleeping alone in the cold car, stayed in his mind. He thought about her again and again. He wanted to help, but he also wanted to be careful. He knew he had to find out more before making any big moves. He started by calling the local Child Protective Services. He explained what he had seen and gave them Tanisha's description. But when they checked their records, they told Mike there was no report of a missing girl matching her. No one had reported her missing, and she wasn't enrolled in any nearby schools. This confused Mike. How could a child live in town and no one know about her? No school, no parents, no home. It was like she didn't officially exist. Mike felt frustrated but didn't give up. He wanted to be sure she was safe. If she wasn't officially on anyone's list, then she was invisible to the system. That made him even more determined. That night Mike decided to visit the laundromat again. He wanted to see if Tanisha was there and maybe talk to her a little more. This time he brought a small bag with some food, a couple of sandwiches, a bottle of juice, and a warm blanket. When he arrived, the laundromat was quiet, except for the hum of the dryers. He found Tanisha sitting in the same spot as before. Her eyes were tired, but she gave him a small nod when he entered. Mike sat down beside her and gently offered the food. "Here," he said softly. "I thought you might be hungry." Tanisha looked at the sandwiches and juice, then at Mike. After a moment she reached out and took the sandwich. She ate slowly, not saying much. Mike didn't want to rush her or make her feel uncomfortable, so he just waited. When she finished, Mike tried to ask more questions, but Tanisha was quiet. He asked if she went to school, but she only shook her head. When he asked where she lived, she looked down and whispered, "Different places." Mike realized this was more complicated than he thought. This little girl was used to moving, hiding, and not talking about her life. He wanted to know where her mother was, but Tanisha wouldn't say much. She said her mother worked late, but didn't say where or what kind of job. Mike knew he couldn't force her to talk. He didn't want to scare her or make her feel like she had to run away. So he decided to watch carefully and be patient. He would protect her from a distance until he could figure out the best way to help. After the laundromat closed, Mike waited, outside. At midnight, Tanisha stood up and started walking toward the back of the building. Mike followed quietly, keeping a safe distance. He wanted to see where she went but didn't want her to notice. She walked to the alley behind the laundromat, then to the old car he had seen before. She opened the door and climbed inside. The car smelled musty, and the windows were fogged up from her breath. She pulled the blanket over her and lay down on the seat. Mike watched her through the window for a few minutes. It was cold outside, and the car offered little protection. He wondered how long she had been living like this, how many nights she had waited alone in the laundromat, hoping her mother would come. The next day, Mike began a deeper search. He checked records at schools, hospitals, and shelters. He talked to people in the community, shopkeepers, neighbors, and even other officers. No one had seen Tanisha's mother recently. No one knew where they had gone. Mike started looking for a woman named Denise Carter, who lived in the area before disappearing a few months earlier. He found out that Denise was Tanisha's mother. She had lost her husband in an accident and had struggled with depression and mental health problems ever since. She had been moving from place to place, trying to keep her family together, but things had fallen apart. Denise had stopped enrolling Tanisha in school, and the girl had missed many months of education. They had been evicted from their last home during the pandemic and had nowhere safe to go. Mike felt sad thinking about how much pain and fear both mother and daughter must be feeling. He finally found Denise at a shelter in a nearby town. She looked tired and confused. When Mike told her about Tanisha, she didn't believe it at first. She thought her daughter was staying with relatives or friends. But when Mike showed her pictures and told her where Tanisha had been sleeping, Denise began to cry. Mike saw the pain in her eyes. She loved her daughter but had been overwhelmed by everything that had happened. She wasn't a bad mother. She was a woman who had fallen through the cracks and needed help. Mike promised her they would work together to get her and Tanisha the support they needed. He knew the road ahead would be hard, but he also saw hope. For the first time in a long while, Denise felt like someone cared. Someone was looking out for her little girl. That night, Mike sat in his car outside the laundromat again, thinking about the family he had just found. Tanisha was still out there waiting. But now Mike had a plan. He would do everything he could to bring them back together and help them heal. He felt a new kind of responsibility. This wasn't just a case. It was a chance to change a life, and Mike was ready to try. Sheriff Mike Jensen's days filled with quiet worry and steady determination. After finding the little girl, Tanisha, sleeping in that old car behind the laundromat, and after learning from Child Services that she was not officially registered anywhere, Mike knew this was more than just a simple case. It was a broken family struggling in silence, slipping through the cracks of the system. He couldn't just stand by and wait. Mike had to dig deeper. He wanted to understand everything: where Tanisha came from, who her mother was, why no one knew about them, and how they ended up like this. Mike began with the basics. He started visiting every small business and person near the laundromat. He went to the diner, the corner store, the gas station, and the bus stop. He asked the owners, the clerks, the people passing by if they knew the little girl or had seen her mother. Most shook their heads. Some said they had seen her sometimes, but no one knew where they lived or where the mother went after work. One older woman, Mrs. Collins, who worked at the flower shop across the street, remembered seeing a woman with a little girl about 6 months ago. She said the woman looked tired but kind. She thought the girl was cute and polite, but they had disappeared shortly after. This gave Mike his first clue. He started asking around the local shelters and hospitals, hoping to find some trace of the mother or the girl. It was slow work, filled with dead ends, but Mike didn't give up. Then, after days of searching, a new lead came to him from a police database. A woman named Denise Carter, age 30, had been reported missing several months ago from a nearby town. She had a daughter named Tanisha. The name matched the little girl at the laundromat. Mike's heart jumped. This was the family he was looking for. He checked more records. Denise Carter had been through hard times. Her husband had died in a tragic accident at a construction site about a year ago. Since then, Denise had struggled with depression and anxiety. She had lost her job and couldn't pay rent, which led to the family being evicted from their home during the pandemic. It was clear that Denise was trying her best to care for her daughter, but the weight of everything was crushing her. Mike found out Denise had been staying at a women's shelter in a town about 40 miles away. He contacted the shelter and arranged to visit her. When he arrived, Denise looked tired and fragile. Her eyes were red, and she seemed unsure of the world around her. Mike sat down with her and gently told her about Tanisha. At first, Denise couldn't believe it. She said she thought her daughter was safe with a relative or a friend. She hadn't been able to take care of Tanisha properly since her mental health had worsened. Tears streamed down Denise's face as she listened. She told Mike she loved her daughter more than anything but felt lost and scared. She didn't know how to ask for help or fix things. Mike promised Denise he would do everything possible to help reunite them. He explained that Tanisha had been sleeping alone, waiting every night for her mother at the laundromat. Hearing this broke Denise's heart. She asked how her daughter was and if she was okay. Mike reassured her that Tanisha was safe now and that they would work on getting her help. Meanwhile, Mike kept visiting Tanisha. The little girl was shy but began to trust him. She told Mike more about moving from place to place, about hiding from people who didn't understand her family's problems. She spoke about missing school and not having friends. Mike listened, carefully, his heart aching for her. With the help of social workers, Mike and Denise started working on a plan to help Denise get better, so she could care for her daughter again. Denise agreed to enter a treatment program for her mental health, where she could get counseling and support. Mike arranged for Tanisha to stay with a trusted foster family nearby, where she could attend school and be safe. Over the next few weeks, Mike spent more time with both Denise and Tanisha. He helped enroll Tanisha in school, bought her books and supplies, and even invited her to some community events to help her make friends. Denise began showing signs of improvement. She attended therapy regularly and talked openly with Mike and the social workers about her struggles. One day, Denise called Mike with tears of joy in her voice. She had found a small apartment, a fresh start for her and Tanisha. Mike and his wife helped furnish it with donations from friends and neighbors. The community began to see Denise not as a lost woman, but as someone who was fighting to rebuild her life. Tanisha blossomed in school and started drawing pictures of her family. She was no longer the lonely girl at the laundromat, but a child full of hope and dreams. Mike felt proud and grateful to be part of their journey. This wasn't just a story of a lost girl. It was a story of a family torn apart by tragedy, but slowly finding its way back to love and hope. Mike realized sometimes the hardest cases were not crimes but lives in need of kindness and care. And for Denise and Tanisha, that kindness made all the difference in the world. Sheriff Mike Jensen's world began to change in ways he had never expected. The quiet town where he had worked for years suddenly felt alive with a new purpose. He wasn't just a lawman anymore. He had become a guardian, a protector not just of laws, but of hearts and hopes. After months of working closely with Denise Carter and her daughter Tanisha, Mike saw things that touched him deeply. He had witnessed the incredible strength of a mother struggling against her own fears and pain to care for her little girl. He had seen a child grow from frightened and alone to joyful and confident. But the journey was far from easy. When Denise moved into her new apartment with Tanisha, it was a fresh start for both of them. The apartment was small and simple, but it was a home, a place where they could build something new. Mike and his wife, Sarah, helped furnish the apartment with donations from the community. A soft bed for Tanisha, a small table for homework, and colorful curtains that made the room feel warm and bright. At first, Denise was shy about accepting help. She had always been independent and didn't want to feel like a burden, but she realized she couldn't do it alone. With Mike's encouragement and the support of social workers, she began attending counseling sessions regularly. The therapy helped her face her fears, her sadness, and her anger. It wasn't easy. Some days were better than others. Some nights Denise would cry quietly, feeling overwhelmed, but she kept going. Tanisha's life was changing too. No longer did she sit alone in the laundromat every night, waiting for her mother. She was now a regular student at the local school. Mike had helped enroll her and even bought her school supplies. At school, she met other children, made friends, and joined activities. She loved art class and spent hours drawing pictures of her family, of sunshine, and of hope. Mike often stopped by the apartment after work to check on them. Sometimes he brought little gifts, books, toys, or treats. Other times, he just sat and listened. Tanisha loved telling him stories about her day, about her new friends, and the things she was learning. Denise appreciated Mike's kindness and trusted him more than she had ever trusted anyone in a long time. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Denise struggled with finding steady work and balancing her mental health. The past still haunted her. Memories of her husband's death and the months of hardship weighed heavily. Sometimes she feared she might lose Tanisha again, but Mike reminded her she wasn't alone. One cold evening, Denise confided in Mike. She told him about her dreams for the future, about wanting to become a nurse, to help other people who were hurting. Mike smiled and told her she was stronger. Then she realized. "You've already saved your daughter's life," he said softly. "Now it's time to save your own." The community around them began to notice the changes too. Neighbors who had once looked away now greeted Denise and Tanisha with smiles and warmth. The local church offered support, providing food and clothing. The school held a fundraiser to help Denise with tuition for nursing classes. Mike's work wasn't just about enforcing rules anymore. It was about building bridges. He organized neighborhood meetings to raise awareness about families in crisis, encouraging people to look out for each other. He spoke at schools about kindness and community. Slowly, the town became a place where no one felt invisible. One summer afternoon, Mike took Tanisha and Denise to the town park for a picnic. The sun was bright, the air warm, and laughter filled the space. Tanisha played on the swings, her eyes sparkling with joy. Denise watched, her face glowing with pride and hope. Mike sat beside them, feeling grateful for the journey they had shared. That day, Denise told Mike she had received acceptance into a nursing program at a community college. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a chance to build a future she had once thought impossible. Mike promised to support her every step of the way. Looking back, Mike realized that the story of Tanisha and Denise was not just about hardship, but about resilience and love. It showed how even in the darkest times, hope could shine through. It proved that one person's kindness could change the lives of many. Mike's nights at the laundromat were over, but his mission was just beginning. He knew there were more families out there struggling quietly. He vowed to keep watching, to keep helping, and to keep believing in the power of hope. Because sometimes all it takes is one kind heart to turn a life around. And Mike's heart was wide open. Sheriff Mike Jensen never expected that a small routine patrol would lead him into a story that changed his life forever. The journey that began with a little girl named Tanisha, sitting alone every night in the laundromat parking lot, had grown into something much bigger, a story of pain, healing, family, and hope. Months had passed since Mike first found Tanisha. Since then, the sheriff's quiet town had seen the slow but steady return of a mother and her daughter to each other, and to a new life. Mike had been a steady presence in their world, not just as a lawman, but as a friend and protector. Denise Carter, once a woman overwhelmed by grief and hardship, had made incredible progress. Through counseling and the support of social workers, she had started to rebuild her life piece by piece. The nursing program she had dreamed of was now a reality. She studied hard, determined to become someone who could help others the way she had been helped. Tanisha blossomed alongside her mother. She thrived in school and found friends who cared. The scared, lonely girl who once sat in the laundromat every night was now full of laughter and dreams. She loved drawing, reading, and playing outside in the sunshine. Mike had been there for many moments, some small, some huge. He helped with school projects, attended parent-teacher meetings, and celebrated birthdays. He was more than the town sheriff now. He was part of their family. But the story wasn't just about Denise, Tanisha, and Mike. It was about a whole community coming together. Neighbors who had once looked away now offered support and kindness. Local businesses donated supplies. Volunteers helped with childcare and transportation. The church organized meals and celebrations. Mike organized workshops and meetings to educate people about mental health, poverty, and the hidden struggles many families faced. He shared Denise and Tanisha's story, without names but with hope, to inspire others. He wanted everyone to understand that behind every quiet face could be a story of need, courage, and strength. One crisp autumn evening, the town held a special event in the community center. It was a celebration of resilience, a gathering to honor those who had faced challenges and overcome them. Denise spoke to the crowd, her voice steady and proud. She talked about her journey, the dark days, and the hope that kept her going. She thanked Mike, the social workers, and everyone who had helped her family. Her words moved many to tears. Tanisha stood beside her, shy but beaming, holding a drawing she had made of their family. It was bright and full of colors, sunshine, trees, and smiles. Mike watched from the back of the room, his heart full. He realized that sometimes the greatest victories weren't in courtrooms or crime scenes, but in stories like this. Stories of broken lives mended by love and community. As the night ended, Mike walked outside and looked up at the stars. The town was quiet and peaceful. He thought about all the families still struggling, still waiting for someone to notice. His work wasn't done. There were more Tanishas out there, more Denises, and he would keep watching, keep caring, because this was more than a job to him. Now, it was a calling, and in that calling, Sheriff Mike Jensen found his greatest purpose.